Hey guys, welcome back to Cooking with William. Today we're going to be making some homemade fresh pasta. It's going to start with this flour. This is about half all-purpose flour, half semolina flour. That gives it a nice taste, and I have about 2.5 cups. With this flour, we're going to make a little well in the center. You're going to want to make sure it's fairly strong and supported so that the eggs that we are about to add do not fall out. Speaking of eggs, we're going to add in 4 eggs into the well. A little bit might fall out, that's totally fine. Just try to keep the majority of it in your well and start whisking with a fork. As you whisk, you're going to want to slowly bring in more and more flour from the edges of your well. You can use your fingers to flick some in as you just saw me do, but you want to get it into a thick paste, at which point you can add a pinch of kosher salt and about a tablespoon of olive oil. This will just help flavor the pasta. You should continue whisking until it doesn't really want to mix together anymore with a fork. It should look nice and clumpy just like this. At this point, we can get our bench scraper and just start folding the entire dough mixture over itself, just like this. As you fold, it'll keep coming together more and more. It'll start off feeling really wet, then it will start to feel like it's too dry, but eventually it will all come together. If you have to add a little bit of water to bring it together, feel free, but try to avoid it if possible. Once it looks something like this, we're just going to start kneading it by hand. Kneading it by hand is just the most efficient way to try to get all of the gluten to start forming. And we're going to knead it for about 15 to 20 minutes. Do not under-knead it, because then your pasta will just fall apart in the cooking water. When you're done kneading, it should look something like this, and when you indent it with a finger, it should pop up almost all the way back up. Go ahead and cover that dough with plastic wrap and let it rest in the refrigerator for half an hour. Once your dough has rested, you can plop it back onto your workstation, unwrap it, and just give it a little bit of a squeeze to soften it up, and then go ahead and split it into 2. This just makes it easier to work with. Take the piece you're not using, wrap it in plastic wrap, and then with the piece you are using, go ahead and form it into a general rectangle shape. Dust it with flour, and then use your rolling pin to beat it and then roll it out into a longer rectangle. You should roll it out to about a foot, but it doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is just roll it over itself like this. We're then going to beat it into submission and roll out again. And then we'll do that whole process a 3rd time. This helps develop the gluten and keeps it from falling apart when we roll it out. Now it's time for our final rollout. You can do this by hand with a rolling pin, but I have a pasta roller. So I'm going to roll out one edge thin so it fits into the roller and just feed it through on its thickest setting. It might not come out completely flat this first time, but that is okay because we're going to run it through on its thickest setting 3 times. This will help make sure the gluten is fully used to being stretched this far. Once we have run through the thickest setting 3 times, we're going to slowly put it through one setting thinner at a time. Do not try and skip any settings. That will cause your pasta to tear and it will not be fun for you. At some point during the rolling out process, it might end up very long. Feel free to cut it into more manageable portions when this happens. That is what I did. I cut it in half. You're just going to want to roll it out until you can start to see your fingers through it. For me, this was about 5 or 6 on my machine, but your machine might be different. Go ahead and trim the edges if you want all of your pasta to be equal in length, and then you can cut it into fettuccine by hand or use your machine to slice it. You'll end up with beautiful pasta just like this. Go ahead and generously dust that with all-purpose flour to keep them from sticking to each other. And then if you're going to use it right away, go ahead and form it into a little nest like this. But if you would like to dry your pasta, you can use a drying rack and lay them out so that none of them are covering each other. Go ahead and let it dry on this rack for 12 to 24 hours until they snap easily and store them in an airtight container. Now we can just make the rest of our pasta. This is a really fun process, I think, and it gives you a pasta that is just as good as some high quality pasta you could buy at the store, but far cheaper, and it's a fun thing to spend your weekend doing. This pasta goes great in my pasta alle olio recipe. and is also great on the side of my chicken parmesan recipe, which will come out next week. Whatever you use it on, you should end up with some beautiful pasta just like this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like and subscribe and to share this video with your friends. It really helps. Let me know on Instagram if you decide to make this recipe.